In February of this year, NASA canceled the moon landing. Not the program, the landing. Artemis III was supposed to put 2 astronauts on the lunar South Pole. The first humans to walk on the moon since 1972. It will not happen. Not in 2026, not in 2027, maybe in 2028. And while America stalls, there is a date on a Chinese calendar that should terrify NASA. We'll get to it. But first, you need to understand what broke. 3 machines, 3 failures, and 1 country that is not waiting for America to figure it out. Artemis was announced in 2017.
We'll learn. The directive I'm signing today will refocus America's space program on human exploration and discovery. It marks an important step in returning American astronauts to the moon for the first time since 1972 for long-term exploration and use. This time, we will not only plant our flag and leave our footprint, we will establish a foundation for an eventual mission to Mars.
The plan was simple on paper. Artemis I, uncrewed test of the rocket.
1. Boosters in ignition. And liftoff of Artemis I. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
Artemis II, astronauts loop the moon. Artemis III, astronauts walk on the moon. The landing site was the lunar South Pole, a region of permanent shadow, below -200 degrees Celsius, where ancient water ice has sat undisturbed for over 2 billion years. NASA promised it by 2024, then 2025, then 2026, then 2027. And then on February 27th, NASA's administrator Jared Isaacman walked to a podium and said the words.
We're going to pull in Artemis III to launch in 2027 with a revised mission profile. So instead of going directly to a lunar landing, we will endeavor to rendezvous in low Earth orbit with one or both of our lunar landers.
No landing, no bootprint, no flag. To understand why, you need to look at the 3 machines. A rocket, a capsule, a lander. All 3 are in trouble. The rocket, the Space Launch System, the most powerful rocket NASA has ever built. More thrust than the Saturn V that launched Apollo. It also costs $4 billion per launch. And it leaks. In 2022, the uncrewed test flight was delayed by hydrogen leaks. Hydrogen is the smallest molecule in the universe. It escapes through gaps no other gas can find. The engineers fixed it. Then, in February of this year, during the fueling test for Artemis II, the hydrogen leaked again. Then a different leak appeared. Helium, from a quick disconnect seal that came loose. The rocket was rolled back to the assembly building. After more than a decade of development, the rocket still cannot fuel itself without leaking. The capsule. When Artemis I returned in 2022, its heat shield came back damaged. Charred chunks were missing. Holes had opened where there should have been smooth ablation. NASA spent 3 years trying to understand why. For Artemis II, they did not redesign the heat shield. They changed the way the capsule re-enters, reduced the heat, reduced the risk. A former astronaut, Charlie Camarda, compared it to playing Russian roulette. It worked. Artemis II splashed down safely on April 11th.
Copy, splashdown.
But there is still a helium leak in the Orion oxygen system that NASA cannot study, because the part of the spacecraft where the leak is burns up on re-entry. It cannot be inspected. It cannot be repaired. It must be redesigned. The lander. This is the worst one. The lander is Starship. built by SpaceX. To land on the moon, Starship must first reach low Earth orbit. Then, it must be refueled in space, not once, not twice, approximately 10 times. This has never been done, not on this scale, not by anyone. If the propellant warms even slightly, it boils, it evaporates. The mission is lost. The first orbital test to demonstrate this was scheduled for 2026. It has not happened, and every Starship test flight so far has been a story of explosions, broken apart in flight, lost during re-entry, disintegrated on the pad. The Starship that will land humans on the moon still does not exist. So in February, NASA did the math. A rocket that leaks, a capsule with an unfixable leak, a lander that requires 10 orbital refuelings, none of which have ever been demonstrated. Artemis IV would not land on the moon. The first crewed lunar landing was pushed to Artemis IV, 2028. Maybe? Now, about that date on the Chinese calendar. In 2003, China launched its first astronaut, Yang Liwei, 21 hours in low Earth orbit. A single man in a small capsule. That was 23 years ago. Today, China has its own space station, Tiangong, permanently crewed, built without a single American part. When the International Space Station retires in 2030, China will be the only country in human history with a permanent presence in orbit. In July of 2023, China announced a target: land 2 astronauts on the moon. By the year 2030, Western analysts laughed. China had never built a heavy-lift rocket, never tested a crewed lunar lander, never built a spacesuit rated for the moon's surface. By the end of 2025, they had done all 3. The rocket is called Long March 10, a super heavy-lift launcher capable of sending 27 tons on a translunar trajectory. Its propulsion has passed full system tests. The crewed spacecraft is called Mengzhou, a capsule built for up to 6 astronauts. Its launch escape system has been tested in flight. The lunar lander is called Lanyue. The name means embracing the moon. It carries 2 astronauts. It can autonomously detect surface hazards and adjust its landing site in real time. In August 2025, Lanyue successfully completed integrated landing and ascent tests. There is a spacesuit, Wangyu, red and white, built to survive the lunar South Pole. There is a lunar rover, Tansuo, 2-seater, already designed. The launch site is being expanded at Wenchang, on the southern coast of Hainan Island. The target is unchanged, 2030. Here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. If America's plan holds, Artemis IV lands in 2028. If China's plan holds, Lanyue lands in 2030. A 2-year gap. But America's plan does not hold. It hasn't held. For 10 straight years, China's plan, it has held, test by test, quietly, on schedule. If Starship's orbital refueling fails, Artemis IV slips to 2029. If the heat shield isn't redesigned, it slips to 2030. If the SLS rocket leaks again, it slips further. And somewhere in those slipping years, a Long March 10 could lift off from Hainan, carrying 2 astronauts in red and white suits toward a place no Chinese citizen has ever stood. A former NASA Associate Administrator, Mike Gold, said it cleanly to a U.S. Senate hearing.
The countries that get there first will write the rules of the road for what we can do on the moon, how we act. If we don't get out there and get there first, we'll lose real estate, we'll lose the rules of the road, and we'll lose the international partnerships and the economic benefits. And helium-3, that could be a new clean power revolution. We can achieve an early win in this competition if America can simply demonstrate the wherewithal not to give up on the race when we are so close to the finish line. If this committee's directives are not followed, for the first time in history, there will be more Chinese astronauts in space than Americans. This should be unacceptable.
On the 14th of December, 1972, Gene Cernan climbed back into the lunar module. He was the last human being to leave a footprint on the moon. For 53 years, that record has held.
May, when much to my surprise, a pair of bunny eyes. Do-do-do-do-do.
It will hold for 2 more, maybe 4, maybe longer. And the next person who breaks it may not speak English. The moon landing is canceled. China is not slowing down.